How you doing? Hi, Aldo. You made it on time. You certainly did. Ah, well, it's summertime. I decided finally we are no longer partial partial winter and partial spring. Hey, Brian. Caesar. Good day. Monsieur Deschanel. Tim. Hi, Tim. Oh boy. Andrew. Neighbor. Okay. I don't know. I was thinking of how we're driven by certain beliefs. Okay, in other words, what watch we'll get and what watch we won't get, and sort of these general kinds of really almost mythological that we tend to believe in. One that somebody had told me at one time. They said, "Well, you shouldn't clap with your watch on because that'll mess it up." Well, I can see the shock of getting claps or getting a clap, whatever. Um, but it turns out that unless you have a not very good watch, most modern shock absorbers will handle that, so you can go and clap and whatever whatever you're doing. But I mean things like that. Hey Dom, hi, how you doing? Michael, hi top reviewer. How are things in Italy? Rob? Hi, John. Hope everyone has a great Memorial Day and don't forget our veterans. Okay. Um, oh, boy. Hi, Dr. Bob's Nightmare. Who's Dr. Bob and what's his nightmare? Hi, Tim. That's funny. Okay, guys. All right. So what do you got? What do you think is sort of some beliefs? I know that like uh that's an AA reference. You would know better than I, Rancher. Hey, Dom, it was a very God bless the veterans. All right. Okay. Hi, Tuna. Rancher, 24 years in August. That would be your granddaughter, Rancher? Who's 24 years in August? I don't know what that is. Hi, HP. If you change the date when time is between midnight and 3 a.m., something breaks. Between midnight and 3 a.m., 1 a.m., and 2 a.m., not sure what it is. Oh, your last drink. I think, well, trying to think, my last cigarette was, last time I smoked was in 1984. Those things I appreciate. Okay. Um, huh. Yeah, I guess, there's some sensible thing. I don't think you'd want to wear a good watch while you're chopping wood or something, but I think there's some things aren't a myth, and they should be a myth. And that has to do with certain investment values. Um, I think I guess one of the first two things I learned collecting watches is that if you want to get your money back, what you do is you buy a Rolex or a Patek Philippe, and I don't know. I think that's probably true. On the other hand, if you're an investor and you want to make money, that's not the way to go. All right. There are other things you have to do that are not quite so simple. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I guess one of the things I hear a lot of people talk about, oh, you have to have a certain schedule about your maintenance. In other words, you should take your watch in every so often. I I don't think that's true. I take mine in whenever they quit working right. I mean, and that's about it. And I talked to a lot of watchmakers, and then that's really all you need. I think one of the things is that, and I'm learning about this now myself with lubricants, when you're going to oil your watch and how to do it and everything like that. In one of the Horological Society of New York meetings that I went to, and this was, in fact, it was one of their workshops. Um, there was a picture that they showed us of a watch oiler, and it looked like a syringe, and there was a little drop on the end for indicating this is. And the guy said you never, ever, ever, ever would have a drop that big. And then after I got my new watch, this is my Farve Luba, by the way, the one I recently unboxed. And after running it through the time grapper and adjusting it, after adjusting it's been running very, very accurately. But the amplitude is way off, and so is the beat. And some people were saying, well, it really needs lubrication. And so that's sort of one of my next kinds of things that I think would be a fun thing to do with these watches. And I'll sort of, again, your common wisdom is that the only person who should touch your watch is a trained watchmaker. Well, there's some truth to that, the same way that I wouldn't, mess with my car in terms of anything. But sometimes you learn how to do something that you can do it with your car or anything else. You don't have to go hire someone. Like for plumbing, you get certain plumbing problems that are not exactly rocket science to fix, and so you do them yourself. Other ones, if you're smart, you'll wait until a plumber comes. But these kinds of things, I'm thinking more and more is that, well, a little thing you can do, and maybe that it would be perhaps a way to get in trouble. I don't know. All right, let's hear some myths that you guys have. HRM, a huge new myth among the Seiko collectors is claiming some models are designed by Gérald Genta. Genta did design one Creator model, but several blogs claim others were also designed by him as well. That's an interesting thing about Gérald Genta. Gérald Genta was a designer, and he was also, from what I understand, was a guy that didn't mind taking credit for things that he didn't design. For a while, a lot of people said, well, not only did he design the Royal Oak and the Aquanaut, but he also designed the Overseas. Well, he didn't design the Overseas, but somebody had mentioned that in his presence rather than saying, no, that wasn't me, that was somebody else. He didn't say that. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll take credit for that. So, yeah, Genta was, like I said, he's a designer more than anything else. Some of the ones that he published under his own name, in other words, some of the Gérald Genta watches, are some very interesting watches. As a watchmaker, one article I read by the editor of Quill and Pad, she had said he never really designed a movement. Now he did have he did have a watchmaker's license or whatever was required, but I mean he's more of a designer than anything else. Blank millimeters is too small or too big. There you go. Hey, Dr. Dobbs. I was Dr. Bob's patient. I probably was. Don't fix what ain't broke. I agree. I agree that's a myth. I mean, a lot of times, well, I'll put it this way. In terms of service, I agree with that. But on the other hand, in terms of another type of watchmaking, I don't think we would have anything interested, because a lot of things that weren't broke were improved. And so it's sort of a funny kind of thing with that. I guess my own crossroad as far as that's concerned is with silicone hairsprings. It's more of having a challenge to put in something that's adjustable, rather than sort of fixing things like you would with a silicone hairspring. I don't want to go off on that though. So anyway, how about Christian Hugensmith? He didn't invent the balance wheel at all. He stole the design from an English guy, if I remember correctly. I don't know. Come back to that. I skipped over Andrew Schild. He had one of the biggest myths is that IBOSH movements are never up to scratch. Okay, first of all, let me sort of rewind it. I think if your point is this, I would agree with you. If your point is that you can take, let's say, an IBOSH from an ETA movement, and then you do a bunch of stuff with it to create something different. And the claim, oh, well, that's just an ETA or a low grade ETA. Actually, I agree that is a myth, because I've seen some really interesting things done with IBOSHs from ETA and probably from other ones as well. But that's a good point, Andrew. I like that one. How did you anti-magnetize? I simply used, there's the same way that Rolex and H. Moser did it, with the anti-magnetizing was done in a preventive way using niobium and titanium and zirconium in the materials used in the balance wheel and the balance spring. There are other ways too. Now, I know we live in sort of a magnetic net, in the sense that, all of the electronics that are around me right at this moment are just like full of stuff. I heard that old oils would gum up the current, and the current oils evaporate. Dominic, yeah, oh boy, I was reading about oils yesterday, as a matter of fact, and they're all different kinds of levels. And you have something with high speed and low torque, and low speed and high torque. And you use one oil for one type and another type of oil for the other, or actually they're not oils, they're lubricants that are non-oil lubricants. And it was sort of interesting. And so then the question I got, well, what do they mean by what would be a high, low speed and high torque? And I think I know what they're talking about. If you look at, let's say an hour gear, for example, that thing is very, very slow comparatively because, your hour is going to take a long time. So it's very slow in terms of movement. But the torque is incredible on those things. I mean, they got very heavy torque. And so I think that would be an example of a low speed, high torque. Whereas on the other hand, you've got like a second hand or an escape wheel. Those things are high movement or high speed and low torque. I think that's right. I could be wrong. That's one of the things I've been working to figure out. I won't buy a modern watch under 39 millimeters, but I have several vintage older watches that are 34, 35, which I will justify because of their age. I heard that, yeah, you're right about old oils, Dominic. Tuna. Cheap watches such as the Seiko 5 and Orient TriStar have been known to work for 40 years or more without any kind of service. I think my Seiko 5 is putting that notion to the test. It's still working just fine. Genta designed the Universal Geneve White Shadow. He did a lot of the design. Some of the ones, like I said, I had mentioned. I mean, as far as design watches and interesting movements, I think some of the most interesting ones are the ones that he did on his own. He also did some designs for Bulgari when he and Daniel Roth both worked for Bulgari for a very short period of time, had a huge impact on certain Bulgari watches. In-house movement are necessarily better than iBosch. Good point, Gilberto. Yeah, I agree with. You can get a top level ETA, and it could be better than a lot of these ones that somebody put together very cheaply just so that they could claim to have an in-house, or one that wasn't very interesting. I think there are some movements that some companies made, and then they sort of went back to ETAs. What I'm thinking of is the SH21 that Christopher Ward had, because I've noticed that a lot of Christopher Wards are now seem to be going back and they're using either Solitas or ETAs again. So, although I never wear watches inside my house. That's interesting. Well, I don't wear them to bed at night, and a lot of people do. And I guess I don't know why. I guess you could understand why you wouldn't wear it in the house. I got clocks all over the place, so I don't need them either. Yeah, Andrew. Yeah, your point's a good one. Hi, Michael. Swiss made on the dial when only 50% is Swiss. Yeah, I think, is it 50%? I think they're supposed to have at least 60% or something like that before they can put it on a dial. When we made our watches, when Larique watches came out, we made sure that they had Swiss made on the dial because it was 100% Swiss. Everything was. HRM, watchmaking oils are an interesting topic. I wish Sen would make their oils available to the public. They make special oils that resist from minus 40 Celsius to plus 60 Celsius. I don't know where you guys go, HRM, but my watch isn't going. My watch goes between 68 degrees Fahrenheit and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything out of that is, but yeah, no, I mean, if you're doing a lot of outdoor work and stuff and you want to take your watch along with you, that's, yeah. But that is an interesting thing. I keep trying to come up with stuff where we can get better watches, really good watches, and that we can get excellent watches that we can afford. And I think, that's an important thing, I think, to do. Although a Swiss-made Geneva seal guarantee the finishment or quality will be better. Yeah, that's a good question. Take a look at, for example, if I had a watch that I wanted to hold up as an example of a near perfect watch, it would either be Philippe Dufour's Simplicity or one of the watches by Roger Smith. Those would be the ones I say, okay, this is what a watch looks like. The others, Gerbail Forsey and Kari Vuonanen and FP Journe. There are a lot of other ones who have that. But I mean, the thing I like about the Simplicity and a lot of Roger Smith watches is the absolute focus on every element in the watch that's being used. Now, if you look, I think it's important for every collector to know really the basics of how a mechanical watch works, starting with the barrel, going down through the gear train, down to the escapement, to the pallet fork, kicking the balance wheel and the hairspring in a way that is like very, very primitive. I mean, comparatively to modern day, I mean, it's almost like some Rube Goldberg contraption. It's something like this. If timekeeping started off with like a smartwatch, all right, with everything would be electronic, they would never have anything like our mechanical watches because they're just too, they're too funky what they do with everything that they go through to keep time. And that probably also sort of sums up what I don't care for about silicone hairsprings. They sort of take out a piece of this funky little way of keeping time. That we're not improving it really. We're improving certain aspects of it in one way that takes away a whole history of trying to solve a problem of magnetization and expansion and retraction. And to me, that's part of this thing that makes it interesting. Most generic watches are rated to minus 5 Celsius. Oh, hey, listen, I believe HRM. Alexander, how about water resistant? Good point. A lot of people are concerned about that, and I think if you're somebody who wears your watch swimming and diving and things like that, that becomes important. But another important thing about water resistance is keeping dust out. The better the water resistance, the less likely dust is going to get in your watch. This is really funny. On the back of my Farbe, boy, do I have it. This thing, I got this new way of focusing now. Okay, on this watch, it says you can't see it in the light, but it says waterproof. The gasket was missing from this watch. I mean, it had probably dried up and blew away. Is what happened with the gaskets. I'll get a new gasket, but I don't think this thing is waterproof or water resistant at all. One thing though that I like about it, it's remarkably thin, just nice thin watch. And this is not an expensive watch, even though most of you think it is. Uh, hey, Rancher, yes, I'm preaching. Oh, pocket watch guy. I'm not familiar with Naked Joe. His name is Chris Spinner. Hey, BW Westphalia, how you doing? HRM waterproof used to mean hand washing and rainproof. Ah, okay. Of course, that's good because I think it's important to wash your hands. And I think we're still in the time of COVID. Somebody went to a big, what is it? Big, it was more than a rock concert. It was Coachella, someplace called Coachella, and they have all these bands and stuff. And he was telling me he came back and he had COVID. He picked that up at that. So that's another thing you want to do. And he had all the shots, and so he wasn't so bad. I had a Pita Oceana that used 0 seals to 5,000 meters. Well, I got a feeling that it was probably a little different than this one. Hi, how's it going, Graham? Not that it ever went to 5,000 meters. What's it gonna do? Survive a riot on the Titanic? It's one thing that I don't know. I guess some people obsess over different things. I obsess over silicon in my watch. Hi, Tuna. Is COVID still a thing? Yeah, Tuna, that's what I thought too. I thought, but apparently they keep having a new strand of stuff. They pretty much under control, but there are a lot of people who don't believe in that them there things. They're just, God, I'll tell you. I don't know. They believe in magic, but they don't believe in getting a flu shot. Okay. I wonder how many micro brands actually do proper certification for their water resistance. Who knows? All I know is that Larique, I don't know, Larique's not a micro brand. Larique is a legend, not a micro brand. That's the way I like to think of it. We rely on the watchmaker, namely Agenor, and they say it's 30 meters. It's 30 meters. When you're traveling, do you look at deal watches in that country? Yeah, although I do. I absolutely do. Oftentimes I don't find them though. I'll tell you, you want to see some overpriced, just crap watches, go on a cruise. They had this little jewelry store in this one cruise I was on. I went and took a look at the watches, and they were like, all of them were overpriced, just junk. Well, I mean, there were some well-known brand names. There's some well-known brand name junk, and they seem to have every one of them. But yeah, I do. When I travel, we haven't traveled really since the pandemic. We got plans though. Okay, frying pan time. I gotta go, guys. Let me get these last ones real quick. Tim, let me see. JLC does water resistance. No, so yeah, I agree, Tim. I think Jaeger-LeCoultre is, I think the only thing that is about Jaeger-LeCoultre, Richemont owns them, and a lot of times they will take out some of the most interesting horology in the sake of increasing sales. They did that to Alonga too. It was a friend of mine who is a German watchmaker, used to love Alonga, and he just sort of like, there was a certain point where, oh, well, they're making it popular. Same thing happened, I think, with Jaeger-LeCoultre. Yeah, the cruise watches are a ripoff. Okay, okay. Hasn't Paddock changed their definition of how they rate water resistance? Is still ambiguous. I don't know. Paddock Philippe. Anything after 2009, I don't even care about Paddock Philippe. Anyway, guys. Well, listen. Gotta run. Rancher, help me out. I need a topic for this afternoon. Something. See if I can get the balloons going. Hello, balloons. Are you here? So this is supposed to bring balloons up. This was supposed to bring up the thumbs. Anyway, thank you guys for getting up so early. Some more places, especially guys, from Oklahoma and toward the West Coast. The rest of you have a great day. Talk to you later, I hope.